We've made up our minds. We're going to do new. Do something else. Do more. Do better. Do good. Do big. Do small. Do it wrong. Do it again. Do it ourselves. Do it together. Do what no one else has done. Do what will become big. Do the same. Do different. Do everything. Do something. Do new.
Good afternoon and welcome to a webinar from Linköping University. Today we're going to talk about a program in ethics, science and policy, which is kind of a newish program. We used to have this as a one-year program, but we now have an extended two-year program. A few housekeeping things before we start, and I introduce my guests today. This webinar is being recorded, so you can view it on our website. We'll put a link on the program page as well. Please put your questions that you want to ask us in the Q&A section. So you'll see it, I think, below. There's also a chat function where you can say hello to each other, say where you're from, but we won't be looking there to answer your questions. We'll be looking in the Q&A section. If you have any questions for us, you can either hit reply on communications that you've already received from us, or you can ask them in the Q&A section, even if you're watching this recorded, as those questions will be forwarded to us. The webinar, we're going to talk for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. We'll talk a bit about the program. I'm here with the program director and a student, and then we're going to open up for questions from you guys. So you can put the questions in the Q&A when you think of them, but we'll deal with them. We'll address them at the end of our chat. I think that's it. From me, my name is Therese Winder. I'm communications officer. I work with the information, the communications around our international programs, and I'm here with.
I'm Garance in English, if you rather.
And you're from?
I'm from France, and I'm a student in the program currently.
Oh, yeah, in the one-year program.
In the one-year program.
In the one that's applied ethics.
And my name is Lars Lindblom, and I'm the program director for this program that's going now and the one that's coming to start in 2024.
Yeah, thank you. Tell us briefly about the program. Briefly, why have we always offered the applied ethics? I mean, why do we want to offer a program in ethics?
Well, because it's important and because it's fun. We think that it's interesting to think about what to do with important things, what to do with healthcare, who gets what healthcare under what circumstances, how to think about risk management practices, what to think about justice, those kinds of things. But we think those are important because we find them interesting in themselves, but also they're important for how we live together, for what society becomes, and for making the world a better place if we can.
Mm-hmm. And what attracted you to the field of ethics?
Exactly that. I think for me it was the perfect sweet spot between theory and practice. I've studied humanities before, art history, and then I had a working life in technology area. And I think when you go in the world after your studies, but even if you're just watching the news as a general citizen, ethical questions come up all the time. And having a theoretical background to come back to the world and to address these real life question and to think about them in a structured way, in a conceptually informed way, is extremely rewarding, and it helps making sense of daily life and the big questions, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's a really
So we've had this program as a one-year program, which is the one you're currently studying. But as of next year, we'll be offering a two-year version. What's the difference between, well, apart from the time, obviously?
Well, the difference is that we have a program with the focuses on applied ethics for 1 year that we really like. But now we're doing a 2-year program where we add on to that issues in the philosophy of science, or rather questions about what is a good explanation or what is a good description of these important phenomena in the world. And we think that if you do both those, you can get even further in making sense of the world and perhaps making sense of what might be an improvement. Because, of course, when you think about, well, let's take the example of healthcare ethics again. If you think about healthcare ethics, your ethical standpoint will rest on a lot of ideas about science and what happens within science, what it is for someone to become healthy, which is in itself both a sort of a theoretical question for medical science, but also an ethical question, which often turns on what is a good life. So we thought that if we dig deeper into what's a good explanation and description of the world, and keep doing the applied ethics part, we would have something perhaps even
Even
cooler than we had
even
before.
better.
Yeah.
We actually have one slide with an overview. If we can bring that up, and we just kind of briefly have a look at what the courses are, because the program is 2 years, which means there are 4 semesters. And the first semester, you're looking at quite a lot of philosophy of policy and of science. How, I mean, is that more, for me, who's not studied ethics, it looks quite abstract, but it's not. You explained before, it's actually, you can bring it down to a tangible level.
Yes, the idea behind all of these courses really is that, well, we will do some abstract thinking. We will learn how to say utilitarianism without getting stuck, etc. But the reason why we're really interested in what we ought to do, what morality really is because we're interested in doing things in the world. And all these courses are about practices in the world that we might be interested in. So the course philosophy of policy making, which I mean seems abstract in a sense, it's really about several different cases of that you be recognized from the newspaper or recognized from talking to friends about politics, etc. So it will be about how to handle questions. We talked about healthcare ethics before. So healthcare distribution, it will be about how to think about risks with regards to traffic systems. It will be about how to think about the internet and democracy. So that first course will be really about a lot of these different cases, and we'll do that for 2 reasons. One reason is to think about those cases because those are important. Second one is to introduce theory that you will have use of throughout the program. So it will be a case-based course given in order to sort of set the stage both theoretically and case-wise.
To give you the kind of academic foundation to tackle the big questions.
And can I just add that all the courses are planned to do really 3 things. They're planned to give you some, or maybe 4 when I think of it. But so first of all, the courses are supposed to be about real-world issues, but courses are also supposed to introduce you to relevant aspects of ethics or applied ethics, relevant aspects of the philosophy of science, of explanations and descriptions, and it's supposed to teach you something new about writing. So that's another thing that goes through each of these courses. So when you look at the name of the course, you'll just see, for instance, we had taxation on one of the slides. That seems like perhaps even a boring course about some policy that's not super hot, so to speak. But that will tell you also about communication over borders when it comes to different fields of study in the university. So we might have a seminar where you explain philosophy to economists and the other way around. We're going to talk about theories of equality and justice. We're talk about the philosophy of economics in order to say something about what's a good tax and what's a bad tax.
So again, the cross-disciplinary approach within the program. Do you I know you're doing the first year, the 1 year program, but do you recognize any of these courses? I mean, are they?
Yeah, I think the content of what we're studying, the 1 year program, is going to be part of the 2 year program in maybe a different structure, but much of the theory, I mean, haven't changed anyways. So they're going to be here, and much of the kind of subfields in ethics are still here. So it's going to be, like recognizable content.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite area?
Have I a favorite area? I'm really looking forward to a course we've not started yet, which is business ethics, because it relates with personal previous experience. But I think any course I'm currently taking is my favorite one, because you discover a lot, and it really, I get into it. So yeah, the kind of one.
Right. Second slide, we'll see. So this is the first year, and then the second year, are they elective when you get to this level? I mean, previously semester 1 and 2, they're all mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is this different? I mean, because 30 credits, if you don't follow the Bologna system, is 1 semester. So the whole program is 120 credits ECTS, which means you do 60 per year. So how?
Well, so semester 3 is made in order to make room for electives. So we're giving 4 courses, but we're working right now on trying to make since this is a bit in the future, so we're not, everything's not set in stone, but we have several universities that we are discussing exchange programs with at that point in time. There is also the opportunity to do internships, and we're also looking into that with potential partners. We can't make any promises there, but what we can say is that for each course in the program, we'll also have at least 1 guest lecture in order to make room for the students to make these contacts. So again, for the first course, which I find is cool, the mayor of Linköping is coming to give a lecture on what he sees as problems in ethics, science, and policy from his perspective as mayor of Linköping. So we're working on creating these meeting places, at least.
So anchoring it in real life, and connected, which is one thing I was going to kind of ask you about the program. Links to both research, but also to I suppose not really industry, but the society around us. I mean, does the program have links?
Well, it does have links. It has links both in the work that we do in the department in general. So we have people who work with policies making it with regards to healthcare, for instance. We have people who work with research ethics at a governmental level. We have people who've done work for the Educational Board of Sweden, etc. So we have this program because we think this kind of philosophy, if you will, is important, and that is important because of the contact with the world. And then the other aspect is that we have these visitors that we're having for each program. So at sometimes it might be from just another field in academia. So we'll meet up with taxation course, for instance. We'll have a professor in tax law come in and give his perspective of what we've been doing in the course. But in general, we're working with people, at least someone from the outside for each course,
to kind of make it connected to real world issues.
And I forgot to say, the final thing is that we as a department, we're sort of a cross-disciplinary. We're a philosophy department, but cross-disciplinary. So our teachers that will teach this program are also giving courses at the technical faculty, at the medical faculty, at other courses in the humanities and economics, etc. So we're interested in this overlap of things from a philosophical perspective.
Great. How come you chose to come to do this program at Linköping? I mean, I can imagine there's lots of ethics programs around the world, but why did you choose to come here?
So you mean in this program in Linköping, not
Yeah.
ethics in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked into it a lot, like the 1-year program description at the time. I was interested in some of the testimonials I could read about the program, which put an emphasis on that balance between theory and real life issues. The fact that it was a lot of focus on writing was appealing to me. The fact that it was very self-driven, so it is obviously structured and you have lectures, but you'll have also a lot of self-studying time where you need to put the work yourself, which I thought was a good one. I was interested in the topics and the fact that the alumni seemed to go both either the academic route or the professional life. And I thought it was a really good sign of being successful at that sweet spot. And the last maybe thing that I was really interested in was a mention of alumni saying, you have to be open to be challenged and to have your views and opinions discussed and maybe challenged, put simply, especially because students are likely to come from different backgrounds, both from different countries, but different study background. And so having these very different starting points to come to a topic, which does create conversation, but it does so in a safe, structured way where you can try and go deep in a topic and uncover any sort of unprocessed maybe opinion and bias, which I think like university is the perfect place to do that. And yeah.
I think you touch upon a good thing then, in that, you know, we often talk about this in terms of the Swedish kind of learning environment, how encouraged you are to challenge both your peers, your students, but also your lecturers, your professors. Was that new to you? This kind of where you're kind of expected to you really, you know, give your opinion, whether it was kind of, you know, whether you thought it would fly or not.
So I think giving one's opinion, I mean, in France, we're used to complaining a lot, but it's more like it's welcome and in a way that is absolutely not necessarily confrontational. And that is what I really appreciate, that any, and it's not, like philosophy is not about opinion, it's about argument, which is much more interesting to me and appealing than opinion, because opinion, like I have mine, you have yours, and then end of conversation. So what I think is interesting is more that, I don't know if it's proper to Swedish culture, but it feels like it's at least something quite specific, I think. Yes, that it's transparent, it's honest, and yet it doesn't have to be confrontational in an aggressive way. And that I think is a very constructive place and starting point to study.
No, and what about the workload? You've said, you know, there's a combination of lectures and self-study. So you need to be disciplined. And actually, I mean, how have you found the workload? Is it, you know, you do a few hours here, or is it, you know, more full-time?
Yeah, no, it is full-time. And I remember seeing a testimonial that did put emphasis on that on the website. And it's true, because even though your week are not packed with lectures, the preparation time for each lecture or seminar is kind of extensive. Is like there is a lot of reading to do, and it is really needed to be done before any lecture or any seminar. There are group work to be prepared for seminars that require coordination. So yes, there is a need for a good self-studying ethics, I guess, where you can
you
structure
have
your
to,
time.
so you can't just kind of, you know, sit in the back of the class and coast through. You actually have to, you know, be prepared to
I mean, no one is going to be at the entrance of the classroom and say, please show me that you've read before a lecture. Before a seminar, yes, you have pre-assignments to give in to hand, but during a lecture you won't, but you have to, like, otherwise it will be impossible at the end of any class to give your assignment back.
What do you expect of students?
Well, I expect students to do what Garon's just outlined. And I mean, it's a master's program, so it's also that you sort of you need to have that ethics of studying, because now you're showing that you are a master of science, and that is your work. But other than that, I expect them to be interested in the argument. You really just listen to their answer and you get it. Uh, um, because philosophy is, we're trying together to figure out these difficult things, and it's not a debate. We're really trying to figure out difficult things like, what is justice really, and that's not something you sort of try to discuss to score points over, but something that people have really been talking about for thousands of years. It's hard work, or big work.
And I suppose the extra challenge and value is people being from different countries, different cultures,
Oh, yeah.
where you have a very different view on. I mean, I can imagine corporal punishment, for example, of children. That in Sweden, it's illegal, but some people come from countries where that's very much part of child rearing. I mean, how do you?
Yes, and I mean that's part of the luxury of my job. So I get smart young people from all over the world come into my lecture hall and tell me things. That's a wonderful thing in my job. It's super interesting, and you can really see how that is pedagogical in itself. You see that someone says something that just shakes loose an assumption that somebody else had about what society is and how we live together, etc. So that quite kind of intercultural discussion is so helpful in thinking more deeply about philosophy, or about just what are we to do with these important policy topics. So that is, I mean, really what I hope that our future students will bring as well. I think that an interest in how are we supposed to deal with this issue, and perhaps some motivation to make the world a better place, and that would be perfect.
That would be perfect. That's what you need. What have you? I mean, you've been here for a few months now. What have you struggled? I mean, has there been any challenges, or has it been completely smooth sailing throughout the whole thing? Have there been bumps where you've thought, "Why am I doing this?"
Let me think. I think luckily, any bumps about why am I doing things? I think not, which I'm really grateful for. But I think it was more maybe a deepening of thinking, yes, I made the right choice. And maybe, yes, at first, like the very first week, there is that sense of, because for me, it was also a big leap of going back to studying after, full-time job at some point. So there is this kind of leap of apprehension. Oh, how am I going to manage that? And is it really the topic I was interested in? But I think it became more and more clear what is difficult. I mean, then we can talk practicalities regarding students
living here or being
and that I was lucky to already live in Sweden, so there were a few things that I cleared, but yes, finding an accommodation can be a challenge always, and for that, I mean, the recommendation, Linköping is really good in the sense, in one of the sense that it's cheaper than other cities in Sweden where you could study. And one of the big tips is to sign up for student accommodation before you know even if you're accepted to the program, because then you can start.
You get queue points. So you get a point for every day you're in the queue to when you've kind of expressed an interest. Yes, I want housing. We have an international program students blog. Have a look. Definitely. I don't think we have anyone from the ethics program this year writing for us, but they have lots of these things. For example, how you go about finding accommodation, signing up, and it's really, really useful.
It is, and I remember reading the newsletters I received, and taking tips from there. In many cases, I didn't sign up for the accommodation, regretted it, because then it was too late to have enough points. So I managed otherwise. So accommodation was one. And I think if there's any possibility to, it can be really nice to come to Linköping before the course actually starts, like a few days at least to land, because I think for some of our classmates who arrived really just like the day before or something and had to find accommodation and things. It's a lot of stress to take in the first week, a lot of new things.
And there's also in August, there's a lot of fun stuff happening. So yeah, even though you do have the starting date, but there's also, you know, you have the peer students who are a couple of years older. They do so many activities to make the new students feel welcome. So I think it's worth coming, you know, a few days, up to a week almost, to kind of get to know your new home. And it takes at least the stress of, God, where am I? Off, because you're bound to be a bit apprehensive and, you know, excited but nervous to start. Yeah.
Can I add some bumps, even though we didn't have any? So because I think there are two bumps that students tend to have, at least if you come from other top subjects than philosophy. And one is reading philosophy texts. It's sometimes harder work than you would think, because for some of our courses it seems that we have few readings, but there are readings that take more work than usual. Not because there's more difficult in a sense, but because, as Garance mentioned before, we're all about the argument. So every text will be a long argument, and that kind of reading will take some time for people to get into at the beginning of a program. And also the fact that we're doing something in this program and in philosophy in general that is kind of unusual for other subjects, namely we're telling you to make an ought statement or to have a moral view at the end of the paper. So so different from a social science paper, you're supposed to keep your values outside of the argument, for instance. We're telling you to actually have a view, and that takes some getting used to. If you spend 3 years of your life making sure that you keep your values outside of your papers, and then we come and say, well, put them inside, but put them in the proper argumentative structure, that takes some learning time.
It's kind of opening up, you know, showing your, in a way, your vulnerability of actually daring, because I think a lot of people, especially I think in the current climate, you know, it's very kind of polarized, you know, and I think people don't necessarily dare say what they think. So this is an exercise in actually.
And I mean, a part of taking philosophy is that we won't grade you on being a good person or being right. Really, we're interested in our hope when the students have taken our programs that they will have better, stronger arguments for the things that they believe, and they provide arguments that other people can look at and say, well, that makes sense. That's our goal, rather than to say that you have to have this view. That's not. I wouldn't want to give a program in Lars Lindblom studies, but rather just helping people to make the argument better and get to the point where it leads.
What they actually think.
Yeah.
What do people end up doing after the program? I mean, you know, we can only look at the 1-year program so far, but
well, it's a mix of going into academia. So a lot of people go on to do doctoral studies, and the feedback we get from them is that they have felt well prepared and better prepared than their other people in their cohorts a lot of the times. We think we're doing something right on that side. And the other side is, of course, that you go into some area of policy, governance, etc. So there are these two paths. So we have someone graduated just the other year, is just up the road here in Technique. Well, maybe it doesn't matter to students who aren't here, but so someone work in technology. So there's a quite a big spread, but some sort of policy or research has been the experience we've had thus far.
What do you want to do with it when you're finished? Or do you not know? I mean, but is it a stepping stone to changing your career, or is it just to kind of enhance the environment you already worked in?
It's still open. It can be both, and I think that's one of the really enriching standpoint to be from in the program. I'm considering pursuing in academia, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see. You've still got quite a few months.
It's still fresh
to go. But I think what I'd like to kind of, from, you know, what I'm hearing here is, with the writing and reading, the strong English skills, language skills are really essential, I assume, to be able to. So you need to not just write like you do in a lot of social science programs, but you really do need to have a kind of a good command of being able to read text, complicated texts, and actually take on board what it says.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the trick is, because we work in this field of philosophy, and we talk about the arguments, and the way you phrase your argument, or the sentences you use, if you use not the word that you thought you were using, or if you use a word that means a host of different things, the argument doesn't work anymore. So that's the reason why we get kind of picky about language, because we're asking people, what is the argument? And then if the argument isn't clear, then that would be a problem in this kind of course.
And the nuances of, I suppose, the words you choose.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah.
Like I absolutely, like, I think, yes, English very important, and at the same time there is also not at the same time, but to maybe go further, because we read the same material, and because words are also being defined within the field of the theory, so the concepts have their own definitions. There is not always necessarily, for instance, an advantage to a native speaker over a non-native, because we are all going to anyway have to clarify our understanding of a word that is maybe slightly different than normal daily use.
Utilitarianism.
That I use every day out of. And the second thing I think that is nice as well is, I think there are services at university to help improve English, but you need, like, otherwise it's going to be very frustrating anyways to not be able to convey one's arguments and points easily.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, we've had this international program for quite some time now, and it works. It's just that you need to be at a sufficient level of English, and then we sort of discuss and define together in the group. And I should also perhaps say that what has worked for the old program and what we build on in the new one is that we're very used to having students from different fields, so that you come from cognitive science or philosophy or history, etc., and we'll meet and sort of catch everyone up, and then we go ahead.
It's one of our few programs that's actually open to lots of different disciplines in the students' backgrounds. We've talked for a lot longer than the 20-25 minutes. As I said, I'm going to round up before we move on to your questions. We're also going to stop the recording after I've done the roundup, so that the question session that is live is only available for those who are watching it live. So any questions that you have after watching this, if you're watching the recording, just put them in the Q&A section and they'll be forwarded to us. The application period for this program, which will start next August, is open now. It's open until 15th of January. So you have until then to apply, and it's an online application at universityadmissions.com. You then have until the 1st of February to submit the supporting documents, and the results come out end of March, something like 27th. It's on our website, but it's important to bear in mind that if you're a fee-paying student, which means you don't have a European citizenship, that means you need to pay your application fee. But you can apply for scholarship if you're a fee-paying student. And this information, I think, was that, Luke, we will have the information available for you on the screen later, where you can actually follow a link. But it's important to know that if you want to apply for a scholarship, you need to select this program as your priority one. You can see that. But there's lots of information at education. Also have a look at our Instagram account. It's a bit like the blog, Instagram, blog, and our podcast, Fika with us. Those are really, really useful. Lots of information about what it's like to live here, being a student here, and you can ask questions of our current students. So it's actually run by our students. But with that said, thank you for those of you who have been watching this recording. And now on to the questions. Luke is my colleague who is kind of administrating this behind the scenes. Are you there?
I'm here, yes, still live and kicking. And thanks everyone already for this part and the questions you have given. As mentioned, you can now indeed submit your questions. Let's take advantage of the moment that you can get your answers taken care of in this webinar. The couple of things that Therese already mentioned, by the way, I have submitted a couple of links in the chat already, so you can find the blog, the student blog, and Instagram account there for your convenience. But let's go over through the questions. We had a question from Maria. Maria was wondering, can it also be done partially online?
Do you do any kind of hybrid teaching, or is it all?
This is planned to be a on-campus program, so there are no plans to do any large extents online. No.
So you
Sorry.
need to be here, and it's also important to note that you do need to be here for the roll call. All our programs start with a roll call when basically you gather somewhere, I think, and you have your name called out and you go, yes, I'm here. The fact that you say yes, I'm here means yes, I want to start the program. Is really, really important. If you fail to show up, you will lose your place. You can talk to the faculty coordinators, and if there are extenuating circumstances, there might be a way to solve this. But this part is really important. So again, you at least need to be here for certain things, even if it had been a hybrid program. But no, it's you have to come here to lovely Linköping.
Well, that's good too, I'm sure. Well, thank you, and I hope that is a good answer from Maria as well. Alexandra has a question. Can you tell me if the program would be suitable for someone with a background in philosophy? So right now it seemed more suitable for someone coming from a political science field.
It is, I think, very suitable because it's there will be, of course, at the beginning, some points where you will say, well, I've already studied. I already know how to say utilitarianism or that kind of things. But really what these courses are about emerging fields of applied ethics or emerging fields of philosophy and science. So, for instance, you'll have a course on taxation, as I mentioned before. That's a field where in itself, in a sense. So there is emerging literature on how to think about taxation. There will be the course on models in in philosophy of science, for instance, which is an emerging field. So it's really the courses will feel to or aim to be for philosophers depth courses at a master's level, but we will do that. And I mean that might seem strange, but we've had this program for almost 20 years, and we have this experience of bringing together philosophers and people from other fields and making sure that the philosophers get what they need as well as the political scientists or whatever it is. So all these courses will master's courses on topics in philosophy. So yes, I think I think in actual fact it's meant to be very much a program for philosophers who wants to take their esoteric, if you will, knowledge from the bachelor's degree and add on using that, making that deeper, so to speak, but also making use of that in the world. So we're really hoping that philosophers feel welcome, because that is one of our big goals.
So they're kind of taking the knowledge they have, but making it applicable, or being able to apply it in a more practical way.
Yes, and as I said, also there is under the hood of the courses, there's more philosophy than you might think there is. So, for instance, one of the first courses is a course on research ethics, which seems to be a very hands-on, sciencey topic, but that will also introduce or discuss ethical theory, because that sort of underpins the research ethics. What is what is a good account of ethics for the problem of research as a institution in society. So I think philosophers should like this.
Thank you. I hope that was the answer you were looking for.
I hope so as well. Otherwise, Alexandra, let us know. Next question from Emmanuel. How deep is the critical perspective of the program? Instead of being descriptive and having a normative analysis, does the program delve into aspects like problem representation?
Yes, I mean, the program as such doesn't have one perspective. It's supposed to give several different perspectives. See if I have a good case or example. So as I said before, we're not here to teach you one way of doing the things, but we're here to teach you how to make the argument for what you're doing better. That means that we want to make room for students to come in with different perspectives and go on working in them within the program. So for instance, some of the writing assignments will be rather open, and one of the criteria for that, for what you can write there, is that it's of interest to you. We will talk about, well, most major contenders in both philosophy of science or the philosophy of explanation, and most major, or maybe all major contenders when it comes to ethics. So we're thinking of this as we practice making the argument stronger, and what we do as teachers is we provide you with, if you will, the toolbox, and that toolbox will contain many different things.
Maybe just, I'm not sure. But if the question, I think the question mentioned descriptive ethics, and that's maybe just like not at all this in the scope of the program, at least not the one-year program, and I guess not.
No, that's a good point. So we will talk about normative ethics, but exactly what the normative ethics is at the end of the day in your final paper is what we want you to make a choice about, rather than that we make a choice about it.
So, but you provide the tools to be able to make that argument and actually underpin it with I suppose theory, but also why you want to have that argument.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Next question from Maria. Can you say something about the ethics of AI, also in regards to this program and its coursework?
Yes.
So AI will be teaching this program completely.
No,
this is an advanced level of AI.
Yes, I wish I existed. Yeah. No, the department teaches a lot of the ethics of AI. For semester, so we have a course that we give at our department. That is a 7.5 course that you could take semester 3 as an elective. That's not part of the sort of structure of the program, but since we give it, it would be very easy for you to take that. I also think that if you're interested in AI, other parts of the course or the course offerings will be of interest. So for instance, the course on models in science will be dealing at least partially with AI, for instance, because when you make or when you build an AI, you have a model of what intelligence is, and in AI research, it's usually a mathematical model that has, well, how to put this? It's kind of close to utilitarianism that we mention all the time for some reason today. So we will be talking about whether is there another math for AI, for instance, or are we making the right choices? Are we making hidden choices? When we use this math, are we making hidden normative or moral choices that plays a role for what AI will do later on, for instance? So that's a part. I should also, it's good we got a question about AI ethics, because that is sort of it's a so quickly developing field that I think probably we'll have to do something more about this within within next year or a year after that. But so for the department is actually right now developing 3 other courses on the AI of or the ethics of AI. So it's a growing field, and then of course you have the master's thesis at the end, where you will have opportunity to work, if that's your field, to work with people who work with the ethics of AI.
Thanks. I hope that gave you the answer you were looking for.
I hope so. Otherwise, also, Maria, let us know. We got some more questions that came in. Saab is asking about financial aid or scholarships. What can you say about that?
We do have the International Scholarship. It is a tuition fee waiver. It's limited. We don't have many. It's very competitive. But you would need to apply on time. So submit your online application by 15th of January, and then pay your application fee, and submit your documents by the 1st of February. And the scholarship is because it's a tuition fee waiver, it is only open to students from fee-paying countries, and it usually covers, say, around 50% of the tuition fee. But it means that European students can't apply because they don't have to pay for their tuition, as Swedish students don't. So then it also applies to EU citizens. That is the scholarship that we can offer. Depending on what country you're from, the Swedish Institute have a Global Professionals Scholarship. I think you can learn more on Study in Sweden page. It's open to, I think it might be around 50 or 60 countries globally. But then there's also, depending on where you're from, there could be local Swedish associations. I know that in the US, for example, there is an organization called SWEA, SWEA, and they do offer scholarships as well to students in their area. So there are other options, but the university only has one. Luke.
Yes, all right, thank you. Got some more questions coming in, so we're going to try to cover those as well. Michael is asking, I'm Canadian. Well, he's not asking that. I'm pretty sure he knows that, but he is asking, do I need a TOEFL exam for applying to this university?
No, not if the bachelor's was taught in English, which if he was from the English speaking part of Canada, I assume that all the programs are taught in English. So as long as it's documented. If it was taught in French, depending on what you did at high school level, you might need it. The best place to look is university admissions. .se or .com? .se. I said the wrong thing before, didn't I? Yes, universityadmissions.se. Have a look under country-specific information. It will say what is needed for Canadians, but it depends on your bachelor's, and possibly on what you did at high school as well.
Oh, thank you. I will paste those 2 links you've mentioned before. I will pass them still on the screen in a little bit. University admissions, and also to the program page, just to make sure everyone has that one. Just a little announcement as well. I've opened up various polls, so thanks everyone already for your poll feedback in this live webinar. For people watching the recording, by the way, you can also still participate in the polling. So do let us know your feedback. So thank you for doing that. And let's see, we still have a couple more questions. Joshua has a resident permit in Finland and is from Liberia. Do I qualify for the free study as a EU citizen?
Is it permanent? If it's a permanent residence, I believe so. I don't know. You're European. Double check. I know sometimes we have immigrants in this country who have permanent residency. They're exempt, but sometimes it depends why you are resident in the country you are. If you're there to study, and that's the grounds that you've been granted a residency, then I don't think you'll be eligible. But you need to double check this. It should be again under. I mean, we have lots of information about. I think it's under fees. What does it cost to study at LIU? And again, universityadmissions.se is really useful. And then the migration agency, they will have the definite. They have a section for students, and if you wanted to do higher education and at which level, and they have a Q&A. So they actually have a really good Q&A section. But yeah, that's unfortunately the only answer I can give you.
Sorry for posting a link over your head, but that is the link to the university admissions that you're looking at. So just to make sure you have that link, and you can open it and have a browse through that at your own pace after the session. Question, one of the last questions we have is from Saheb. I'm about to complete a PhD in healthcare rights and healthcare ethics. Will this course will still be of value to me?
If you have a PhD, was that the question?
A PhD in, what was it? Healthcare ethics
Healthcare
and
rights in healthcare and healthcare ethics.
It's hard to say. And if it depends on what your thesis has been on. I think that there are a lot of things in this program that might be useful for someone even with a PhD, but I think it'd be wrong for me to say that it's definitely the case. I think that needs to. Then we need to know a bit more about what kind of rights studies you've made or done, etc., to be able to give you a real clear answer. But I have to say that I think that the two courses are devoted to healthcare ethics, the ethics of medicine and the ethics of healthcare priority setting, will be very cutting edge when it comes to that area. And I think that the other courses the program is designed to be a unit, so to speak. So things go together. So it might be, but it needs more investigation than I can give now.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I just mention one thing that we haven't mentioned, and that is something that I think is pretty cool with the program, and that is when you write a master thesis last semester, that will be written in the form of an article for submission to a peer-reviewed journal. So, for instance, if you are if you have a PhD, for instance, then you probably would like to have that structure, because that will sort of bring you along in your work as a budding researcher. But I also think that it's going to be very useful for all the students, because it's a particular form of writing. It's a difficult form of writing because you have to be short, and it's something that can be useful for you for the next step. If you, for instance, if you want to go on in academia and say that you have a submitted or a published article when you send in your application for the PhD program, that would be useful, I think.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good.
All right, thank you very much. Those were the questions we have received so far. So I guess all by now is clear. Otherwise, still the last minute. If you still have a question, this is still your moment to ask it to any of the staff members, the students as well. So to just get answered. Otherwise, you can still, of course, get in touch. You have received in the chat, you see various options to get information as well from Linköping University and the program. So do use those channels as well. And unless there are any further questions, I have a question for the audience. Don't think there's anyone further. No. Then I'd like to know how we did. How did you feel the session went? We'd like to know a bit of your feedback. So on the screen right now is a little poll to know if you felt the session was Good or not? Nicely pasted over our
No,
heads.
not at all kind of nudging at what you just saw on the screen.
So, well, we're getting first answers. They seem to be positive, so that's good. And yeah, with that, let me see. No, there was not a very question. Okay. With that, from my end, we slowly can round up the session. I would like to thank everyone for having joined. So, of course, the audience, we got students in from a lot of different countries in the world. So thanks for taking the time. I hope it was useful to you. Maybe you end up in Linköping, maybe even as study buddies next year, who knows. And last but not least, of course, I'd like to thank the speakers for today. Therese, thank you very much. And both of you as well, Lars, thanks very much for taking the time and your dedicated insights and information. And maybe last word over to you, Therese.
Well,
Wrap it up.
all I have to say again is thank you, and thank you for your questions. I'd like two things actually from you. What's your favorite thing about Linköping, and what's your favorite thing about the program?
From me.
Yeah, from you.
My favorite thing about Linköping, it's a very cozy city. There are some amazing cafes, and it's you go through foresty area. I go through foresty area to go to university cycling, which is great and very safe. And my favorite thing about the program, it's hard to point one. I just love that mix of really abstract theory in the real world, and the fact that it feels very, very relevant just now in the world in particular. And the fact that when I say I'm in an ethics program to people around me, wherever they're from, whatever their background, there is a spark. Like, people are interested, they can relate, and it sparks interesting conversations from there, whatever perspective and problems they have in mind when they think of ethics. And these days it's often AI, as we discussed, but not only. And I love that it makes people think that they can, some people feel hopeful that they can have a more interesting conversation in some ways on difficult topics. And I love that.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm going to leave you with those words. So come sit in one of the cafes and discuss ethics. Sounds like the perfect afternoon. Thank you for having joined us. And thank you to both of you for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.